Hello, anyone there? Anybody there? Anybody? Anybody there? Anybody there?
Hello.
Hello.
Harriet. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes. Anybody there?
We just want it isn't echoing. Oh, it's not that. I'm not. We're just having difficulty with you shortly.
Has it started yet, or what's going on?
Not yet. Sorting out technical stuff. Just bear with me.
Good morning, Councillor Phil Marks. Can you hear us and see us okay?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm not seeing all that well, but I'll muck around and try and see more.
Not a problem. We're about to start the meeting. You're okay? Ready to study?
There we are. It's better. Very good.
Thank you. We will officially open today's meeting at 9:43 a.m. and I would like to acknowledge traditional owners and pay respects to elders past and present on the land in which today's meeting is being held. I'd also like to advise that we are experiencing a number of technical difficulties and we will work through those throughout the meeting. If at any point, Councillor Phil Marks, you can't see or hear us, could you please let us know if
Yep.
goes blank. We'll also come back to you, particularly to make sure that you hear all the matters, all the presentations, and you're part of all the discussions. As everybody is aware, we are also live streaming this meeting and it's available on the website. There are no apologies for today's meeting and there are no members on leave of absence. The minutes for this JDAP meeting and other JDAP meetings will be available on the website. We have three parts to our meeting. We have two separate councils represented in today's agenda. We will deal with them in the order they appear in the agenda. Part B being the City of Belmont, and we accordingly have the panel members made up of two councillors, being Councillor Phil Marks, who's online, Councillor Christopher Kulczynski. We have members Ian Birch to my right. We have member Gabriella Ponzi further to my right. My name is Francesca Lafanti, presiding member. Members, you have read all the material. Could you have a show of hands that you've duly considered all matters before you on today's agenda? That is unanimous for the minute taker. Members, we have some disclosures of interest. And we have one disclosure of interest provided already. Would the member like to go through that disclosure?
So for the matter relating to the City of Belmont, in relation to the development application for the logistics centre, this item was considered by council in relation to a sale of land, and that parcel of land has been acquired by the applicant. So I'm declaring an interest that I supported the matter that was put to council to sale that lot of land, which now forms part of this application.
Thank you. The interest has been provided. Approval is granted for full participation in today's meeting, including the item and voting on the item. Are there any other interest disclosures? There are no further interest disclosures. We now move to the item 3.1. We have one presenter, Nick Hiding, who will present in a few moments, and then we will go to officers at the City. Would you like to present?
Thank you, presiding member, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. So Nick Hiding over planning, representing Sadley Group in the proposed logistics centre development in Belmont Avenue in Kewdale. We reviewed the City of Belmont's responsible authority report, and that is the recommendation for approval in front of you today. We support that, and we take this opportunity just to address some of the conditions as we set out in our submission previously approved. Condition 2A be the main focus of my submission this morning, relating to requirement for an overflow parking area to be provided on site in relation to a technical shortfall in parking. Although the proposal involves a shortfall, the proposal in this circumstance should not be calculated in terms of the standard application of parking at one bay for 100 in terms of the warehouse floor space. This is because we're actually proposing a logistics centre development, not a standard warehouse, and equally we should be asked to provide parking for both warehouses and office users on the site. Our proposal in terms of need is 100 bays for the staff. We're providing well in excess of that, 172 bays. And we believe in the circumstances of this proposal, the demand that we're creating is adequately provided for on site. Although there's a scheme provision requiring an overflow parking area, this provision in the scheme is capable of variation. We believe in this circumstance, we provided a letter recently provided this morning outlining the exact demand that we have for this development, just 100 in terms of staffing. And that's existing and proposed. So there's no need for any greater parking than what's provided on this site. We submit that this condition doesn't meet the test of validity and it doesn't fairly relate to what's proposed. So we'd seek for 2A to be deleted. Just want to reinforce that we've got 100 staff in the existing and proposed facility, 172 bays provided on site. There should not be a need to provide an overflow parking well in excess of that. We just don't believe it's necessary at all. In terms of the other conditions, condition 2B is a landscaping requirement. The requirement in that condition at the moment cannot be implemented. We can adjust that to 2.4, but equally, if we keep it as it is, the triangular parts of the landscaping can be planted with trees. We believe that's an appropriately wide landscaping area. That condition should be at least amended. And going through some of the others, just quickly noting I only have a couple of minutes to present. Condition 5 is the caveat, which is linked with 2A. Given it's not necessary to provide that overflow parking, condition 5 should also be deleted. Condition 7 is relating to public art. We'd like for that condition to be amended to be action prior to occupation, not prior to building permit, so as not to hold up the building program. And the condition should also be read to be a minimum of 1% of the construction cost and not provide a specific dollar figure. And the reason for that is the indicative construction value at the time of lodging the DA was 40 million. That has been quite well adjusted downwards, and we wouldn't want to have a minimum dollar figure in the condition. We'd just like to have a standard 1%. And then when we apply to clear that condition, we provide evidence of the dollar figure of the construction value to inform that. There's been many other DAP decisions that simply refer to the 1% figure for the public art. We request that this condition be amended in two parts, to be prior to occupation, but also specifically link it to the 1%. Condition 9 is the submission of a sustainability report. We have objected to that on the basis of our submissions in our written submission provided to you, that we provided commitments and responses to each of the panel members' requirements, the design review panel members, that is. And we believe in the circumstances that this has been addressed and we don't need to provide a sustainability report. However, if the panel is of a view that the sustainability report should be provided, we'd ask that the specific items listed in condition 9, the specific sustainability items be removed so that there aren't those specific materials and construction items listed there, rather than just provide the sustainability report for the city to assess upon its receipt. So we'd ask for condition 9 to be amended in that way. Condition 11 talk to wayfinding requirements. We submit that given the proposal is not a public access facility, not a shopping centre, not a multi-storey development. The parking along the front along Belmont Avenue is very clear, and we believe that it doesn't really require much in the way of wayfinding. We'd ask for condition 11 to be deleted. Condition 14 relates to the size of vehicles on the site, and we'd submit that if the road network permits a certain size truck, that might change in future. If the RAV network changes by main roads, we'd ask that this condition not be applied so that it doesn't unnecessarily restrict this logistics centre development in the future. Condition 16 is essentially a duplication. The city, I believe, has agreed to its deletion. Condition 19, equally, the city has responded, agreeing that that condition can be deleted. Condition 25 relating to building height. That was Perth Airport requirement. We are very well inside the height requirement, and the city has agreed in its response to the R13 direction for that to be deleted as well, which we're happy with. And condition 26 can be adopted simply as an advice note, which the city has agreed to as well. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions. I've got Nick and Sheldon from Total Project Management.
Thank you. I have one question to start with. My question is, at the very beginning of the presentation, you referred to additional material that's provided this morning. Can you clarify that, as I do not have that material?
I procured a letter from Sadly Group just confirming that there's 100 people involved in staffing this facility, both proposed and existing. Just wanted to make that clear. I provided it to Neil, but I understand that it was very late. Only secured it overnight. In response to your R13 direction for additional information,
Okay.
and the city's response to it, we just wanted to provide a letter by Sadly Group confirming the staffing requirements at 100.
And that's in relation to, that ties directly to condition 2.2A. Can I just confirm with the DAP Secretariat, is any of that sent to the
No,
ministry
I haven't
stage?
had time.
That's okay. I just want to make sure that we were for member Phil Marks. As you would have heard, there was a comment by the presenter in relation to material forwarded today, and I wanted to confirm whether or not we have it. It's been confirmed that whilst it's been submitted, due to time, we don't have it, and the applicant has clarified the content of that. Can we please record in the minutes that that material has not been provided in the written form to panel members? The applicant has provided verbal outline in relation to staffing numbers and in relation to item or condition 2.2A.
I do have a hard copy if that's been done.
Probably not going to help because all members will need to have it. But thank you anyway. That was my initial comment. Is there any questions from panel members at this stage? Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. I just have a query. All these conditions, it was the first time that you were aware of these conditions when the report was published? Were they not discussed with you as the town went through the process of putting the report together?
We did request draft conditions from the city when their report was finalised. We did get a copy of those, although it might have been only a week prior to the responsible authority report being generated and submitted to DAF. So we had the benefit of a little bit of extra time beforehand to consult with our project team to get our heads around the conditions, but certainly not earlier than that.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
Thank you, Chair. So the vacant or the land that we're talking about, that overflow parking, just clarify what's going to happen to that.
That's the truck manoeuvring space for the
The whole
logistics centre. Well, it's been allocated for that purpose, yes. So you can understand that the truck's going in there, parking, potentially waiting to get into a loading bay, maybe very, very temporary storage of some of the goods that they're bringing in. We don't want the overflow parking in that area anyway, just because of that function. We'd like to keep the heavy vehicles separate from any light vehicles. We certainly don't want that overflow parking, and we certainly don't need it.
So it's specific to the use that you're proposed, because one of the concerns is if the use happens to change to a different type of warehouse parking requirement.
Sorry to interrupt. Could I hold that question? We've just lost a panel member, so you might have to pick the end of the question and then you can provide your response. Sorry. Is anyone able to text? Yes, sir. Oh, okay, great.
happens if you can't get back on?
Pardon?
What happens if you can't get back on?
We move on.
Okay.
We give time for the technical glitch to be fixed, and then judgment decisions to continue. We have a quorum. Yeah, so we can,
They're just trying to get it back. They're talking through it.
just give it a few more minutes. All right. Okay, we are going to recommence the meeting. Can you please record in the minutes recommencing in time according to my computer is 10:03. It's been 7 minutes, as I understand, on hold, and we will recommence the meeting and assist the last member when he's online. Okay, if you'd like to, have you finished answering your question? And do you remember if you finished it?
It's essentially that overflow parking area and the intended use for it. It was a bit hard to see on the plans. Also, the condition 2A mentions overflow parking shown on in the area marked overflow parking on the approved plans. That's area that's not marked by you. That's
Not marked by me.
Yeah.
So in the body of the responsible authority report, there's that image. You can see that the city has suggested that's the location for the overflow parking, which is in the truck manoeuvring area. That's part of the truck yard.
So
We don't accept that. We don't want any overflow parking there. We don't want any cave in there. We want that's the truck yard for manoeuvring the trucks.
yeah, I'm just thinking if I've got a concern with condition 5.
David.
But if it was marked on the plans, you say you're not going to need it, you can continue to use it
Right.
for your purpose. Is that maybe something you could live with?
So is it? There's no.
It wouldn't mean you're not allowed. I don't think they would be there saying, well, you're not allowed
So
to
previously,
trucks around there. It's got to be.
Yeah.
It's because it's overflow parking.
Yeah,
It's
we've
not-
done a number of these developments where we've had a condition for deferred bays, where it is noted that let's say in the future, like you say, there's a use change or for some reason that there is more parking required. There's noted deferred bays that then the user would have to mark up and give the parking, yes. We just don't want the caveat on Savia's group to say, well, we must provide X amount of parking for some reason. You know, by virtue of these sort of facilities, I understand the policy in the 1 in 100, like that's written for small facilities, 3,000 square metres, 5,000 square metres, we're talking about 25,000 square metres here, and automation, all that sort of stuff. We're getting less and less of people working in these things.
Also, note that this is considered a different use than a bog standard warehouse, if you like, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's not specifically covered.
Yeah.
In the parking provisions, it's a best nearest fit, maybe. Yeah. So thank you. No, I understand that. Chair, I've got
Yes, can you have the questions?
just in relation to the public art. Pardon me. Prior to occupation, have you progressed anything on that? On the public art at this
Not at
point?
this stage, we haven't. No, I'm obviously waiting for planning approval until we've identified areas where we would look to do public art. And generally, I think, you know, with most developments, it takes some time to do that. We're in a position now where we actually have a builder ready to go. We'd like to commence work on site in the coming month or two. And to resolve a well thought out public art proposal takes longer than that, we feel. And there's a process to go through with the city, etc. So we just think that it's reasonable for that to take due course during the construction and make sure it's implemented prior to the occupation.
You don't have any concept of how you might.
No, we know locations on the site where we're going to put it, but we don't know whether it's going to be sculptures or what it might be.
Thank you. And wayfinding, Nick, you said that's been thought through. But anything you could add to that?
Well, I mean, really, there might be a sign out the front, for instance, that says public access versus no public access. As simple as that. I mean, it's pretty easy to find the car park along Belmont Avenue. Just don't think it requires wayfinding. You know, an actual submission to the city identifying all the wayfinding signage and specifications.
A new driver coming to the site or something.
Oh, look, and that'll be well signposted, right? It'll be, you know, delivery entry, exit only, that sort of stuff. I mean, that's operational, that will definitely happen. You know, if it's something as simple as that, then that will be captured. I think the way that the condition was written, that expected something much more detailed. Because it was a public space that anyone could walk in and want to know where it goes.
And that, like, you gather that there's not going to be a lot of visitors other than
No, it's not a public
regular
facility.
users.
Because there's no businesses in general, unless they've got business there.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from panel members?
I have a further
Yes.
question. In relation to the public art, if the condition were to be amended to say that you commence discussions with the City of Belmont prior to lodging for a building permit on the public art, would that be something you could live with? Because it takes a long time to get a public art project on the ground.
Totally agree.
And if we put in that it is prior to occupation, then that means, you know, you might be in this development for 1 or 2 years before your public art actually even gets on the ground.
Our proposal would be the public art needs to be completed by occupation, i.e. installed. That would be our proposal. So
Okay.
not to start discussions, the proposal for the condition would be that the public art is completed by occupation.
Normally with a condition, it's either prior to building permit or prior to occupation. So it's trying to, you know, the team knows that they have to do it. It's just, we don't want it to be prior to building permit because that will hold everything up. The only other bookend is prior to occupation. But the team knows that they're going to have to do it and they will start doing it. It just would like to be not holding things up.
If the condition read to be completed by occupation, we'd be happy with that.
Any further questions? Any further questions from members? We'll move back to the agenda. We now have officers from the city. Officers of the city want to make any comments on this proposal or any responses to the R13 request or questions you've heard today.
Chair. This is Brandon from the City of Belmont. So I wouldn't go, just in summary, the city is broadly supportive of the proposal and consider that it's appropriate to its location and its connectivity to the railway reserve complements the operation of the Qdale Industrial Estate. So without further ado, I go into some of the matters that were raised by the applicant in the Reg 13 and probably provide more background on conditions 2 and 5 regarding the overflow parking. So under clause 4.13.2 of the city's local planning scheme, this provides scope to grant a maximum of 15% reduction to the required number of days on site. This discretion is, however, on the basis that the space is set aside to cater for the full parking requirements if they are required in the future. As this is a scheme requirement, the city believes that there needs to be a cogent reason to depart from it. As a matter of background, it's noted that the previous JDAP approval on the site in 2022, which was for a logistics centre, albeit at a slightly small scale, applied a condition that is reflective of the clause. It is also noted that during this, with regards to this proposal, the applicant at the time went into a lot of detail regarding the operations and distributions of staff across the building, as well as the shift sizes to facilitate the particular condition. Where the city and JDAP have previously considered variations to this particular clause, it was due to proposals presenting detailed data that demonstrated high level of certainty on the site-specific parking needs, and this provided cogent reasons to do so. Such variations have been supported by detailed project-specific data. This includes information on operational aspects, staff and visitor numbers, and importantly, operational details such as worker shift, which all provided high level of certainty on the realistic use of the bay on site. As an example, this was evident in recent JDAP approvals for a logistics centre at 33 Miles Road in Qdale. This proposal provided detailed information regarding number of office and warehouse staff, and as well as anticipated number of visitors. It also provided shifts and operational aspects. More importantly, the facility was purpose-built to cater for the operators' needs. The subject proposal that's in front of us has not provided a high level of specific details and data on staff numbers, operations, and shifts. Accordingly, it's not considered that sufficient detail has been provided to justify or provide enough certainty to depart from the clause. Given the above, the designated overflow parking is we consider to be appropriate for the following reasons. It will cater for situations such as potential operational change that may require more staff parking spaces. It is to be maintained as an open area for future car parking spaces, as what was discussed previously. And that is to be maintained area for future car parking spaces if required. As such, it doesn't hinder the operation of the logistics centre as there's sufficient space for truck maneuvering in the meantime. For the reasons set out above, the city considers that it is necessary to maintain the condition. Now, also provide some background or cover up the city's position on the public park contribution condition, just for the benefit of the panel. The value specified in the condition represents 1% of the estimated value of the proposed development, which is consistent with the basis for determining public art contribution as per the city's local planning policy number 11. The approach of stating the dollar amount in the condition ensures specificity and certainty within the planning condition. It is noted that this approach for public art conditions have been applied consistently by DAP for the following proposals. First is the data centre at 37 Laverty Road in Belmont. Again, the logistics centre at 33 Miles Road in Qdale. the Disability Support Services and Childcare Centre at 112 to 151 Abernethy Road in Belmont. The warehouse at 197 to 201 Dresden Highway in Belmont. And that concludes my statement for the time being.
Thank you. Panel members, are there any questions to City Officer? Yes. Questions.
Hey?
Yes,
Oh.
sorry.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Firstly, we have had some information presented today that says it's going to be 100 employees. Does that help?
The city would, well, through the chair, the city would prefer more detailed information if possible from the applicant in terms of shifts or maximum staff.
Look, I haven't been to your parking policy, but I don't understand it if it says that you can have a 50% reduction, but as long as you provide for the parking, it doesn't seem to be. So irrespective of what information is provided, you can't allow a variation anyway, which is the only policy, parking policy I would have heard of that says you can have a variation, but you can't have a variation because you've got to make provision for it. Because if this, in this case, there happens to be some of the site that's not used, but in most cases, there isn't any more land. So I think I must be wrong in my interpretation. I expect that there is discretion in this panel to approve a variation without necessarily providing for overflow parking. Can you answer that?
So it was through the chair, was it regarding the scheme provision itself?
Well, yes. I mean, reading this, it almost suggests that we've got no discretion because unless they provide for overflow parking, we can't make a decision to approve this with the parking. It's almost like a refusal.
Can I just clarify that? I think what's being referred to, just to get clarity, and I'm in the scheme at the moment, I think the clarity is around provision of clause 413(2) with the general discretion provision. Just trying to quickly find the general discretion provision in your scheme. So one gives general discretion for decision maker, and then you've got a clause I've just read out that talks about that.
Yes, so there is. I would expect there must be.
There is a general discretion. I'm just going to find the number for you.
There must be. Okay.
So it's 4.5 is the general discretion provision.
Thank you. That was
4.2.
Pardon?
Does it exclude?
No, it doesn't. The general discretion is the stock standard general discretion provision, and it says it can only be exercised by obviously the decision maker where it's considered appropriate and non-compliant will not have an adverse impact. So it's the broad general discretion to vary standard and development, site and development standards and requirements. So the question, I suppose, is really the two that said it appears that there's general discretion written into the scheme, and then there's a more specific provision, and the clarity is sought about the wording of that specific provision.
I suppose further to that is that the land is essentially going to be undeveloped, or at least no buildings on it. If someone, if at some future time they want to put a building on, they'll have to make a planning application. So then that would be considered at that time, wouldn't it? Without necessarily having the other caveat.
Yeah,
that's
right. Yeah.
Thank you. No, I think the public are. Oh, the other one was with the vehicle size limitation. I get your concern there is particularly the crossovers, and sorry, it's something I perhaps should have asked Mr. Hitting as well. But
You can go back to present.
look, your concern is that the crossovers might not be able to handle a bigger vehicle. But you also mentioned the site itself, but in particular the crossovers. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Based on the swept path diagram that was provided by the applicant for the largest vehicle, it demonstrated that it's capable of maintaining lane correctness. And I suppose from the city's perspective, the concern is that if a larger truck was to access the site, that lane correctness might not be possible.
I think through the chair, I think that if main roads upgrade roads to allow for larger vehicles, there's numerous amounts of crossovers that may not allow that around the city. In this case, if stadiums look to increase their trucks in the future, then we'll probably design crossovers for that increase in provision in the future. At the moment, they're just DA plans, and we can always obviously amend that. So, if the condition was amended to suggest that the crossovers needed to be designed in accordance with required truck access, then that would be comfortable with that. That ends the
Thank you. Questions you have? We'll move into together.
Okay. Through the chair, thank you. In relation to condition 9, which is the sustainability report, the condition actually says that the sustainability report has to be provided to the satisfaction of the city on advice of the design review panel. I take it the city may potentially also be asking other bodies for advice on that sustainability report. So if the words on advice of the design review panel were to be removed, is that going to be an issue for the city?
Not from the city's perspective. The city ultimately will still seek advice from its design review panel.
And from whoever else. Okay. So maybe that is a way to get a work around that. And I have noticed that there are existing street trees in the verge, but I've also noticed that there's no condition to protect those existing street trees during construction. Is that a condition that you may want to see?
That's certainly a general condition that we want to see on there. In this particular case, we didn't see the need to put on the condition because the location of those crossovers were far enough away from the existing street trees.
Okay.
But that's certainly something that we will be open to having on.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? That's it. Any further questions? I have a question to the officers. My question is specifically around used cars and parking. And I note that the scheme specifically gives a used class to logistics. It also has a separate use class for showroom, separate use class for warehousing. And whilst I understand the assessment in terms of looking to the parking provision of the table, I know that the table doesn't have a logistics centre parking classification, and you've used the parking for warehousing. My question is really around the rationale for that, because the scheme has specifically identified a separate use for logistics, but the report treats them for the purpose of parking to be a similar functionality, operation, and therefore parking demand as warehousing. Is there a particular reason why you choose that? Because my thought process is you've been quite specific about separating these particular activities out, which would imply there's some understanding or planning consideration that they operate different from warehousing. So I'd be interested in your comment in that respect.
So from the city's perspective, I suppose the difference between the logistics centre and the warehouse land is essentially down to the operational arrangement side of things. But as far as the built form side, it is broadly similar. So hence the city has applied the nearest or closest parking rate that could be applicable.
So given that it's broadly similar, or that you refer to it as operational, I suppose I'm continuing to drill down. If you have any further information as to the rationale around a separate land use classification for the activity, and I'm getting my head around how similar actually are they. Therefore, lead to the question for me of parking.
So I'll probably, sorry through the chair, probably revert back to my previous comments. on
That's
that
okay.
one.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Not a problem. That was my. Sorry, do you have a question on that?
Yeah,
Matt,
just
yes.
further to that, that might suggest that if the concern is the change, the nature of you, if it was to become a warehouse in the more traditional sense, if you like, they need a development application. Even notwithstanding the plan says warehouse, but the overall use is a separate use. So arguably they might need a development application to change of use, and therefore you could deal with any concerns about parking at that point.
Yeah, that's correct. Providing they need a development approval, I don't need the exemptions for change of use. Yeah.
My second question is to do with public park value and the nomination of the number in the condition, and I understand the rationale for that, and I understand the need for clarity is the purpose for having in there. The applicants indicated to us today at voting that they, as a result of refinement of their design elements and their construction elements, they believe the number is going to be significantly different, a much lower number from the anticipated or nominated value as part of this application. In terms of clarity, and that's really what I'm talking to, 1% is clear, a number's even clearer, a dollar value is even clearer. And I'm now going to go to, and this is probably a question for both of you, typically with a building permit, there are also nominated values. So it's not one where the applicant says A and it's just, it's not tied to anything. A building permit requires dollar values put into it. Is there concern about the manner in which the two parties, being applicant and city, are satisfied that the dollar value is a definitive number for which that 1% would be triggered against? And I suppose that's really my question. Is the concern that it might get grey, and that's why it's included as the percentage and the value? And are there concerns if it were tied to building permit? Or is the concern that the building permit might be in stages or other elements like that?
So perhaps I'll go into depth of what the city's rationale is in applying the specific number, and this is probably stems back to the intent of the local planning policy, which is inherently tied to the estimated value of the proposed development at the development application stage, where while the city hasn't applied a condition that just specifies 1% as opposed to the dollar value, we have received feedback from applicants previously that their concerns with if the condition was to only specify 1%, and that when it comes to the building permit stage, that value, the value of the construction goes up, then that means the public art contribution goes up along with it. So that, I suppose, is on the opposite end of the spectrum. So on that, we believe it's fair to perhaps the applicant that we apply the specific value. We're certainly open for the applicant, if they deem fit later on down the track that that value has changed, to approach us perhaps through an amendment to change the value on the condition. That's certainly something that the city is open for discussion to.
Thank you. Essentially, those are my two comments, two questions. Did you want to? I'm happy to have your comment.
The dollar value, the construction pricing is actually coming down a bit now.
Mm-hmm.
The last few years, it's obviously gone the other way, and that's probably where the applicants in previous have said lock in a dollar value so that we don't get a change along the way. But in actual fact, this time around, it's going back down quite significantly now. So we'd actually like to have it at 1%, as we know the policy says. When we come time to clear that condition, we can provide the city with evidence that this is the construction value. We have a tender price, we have a QS or whatever to demonstrate to the city this is the dollar value going to building permit, and therefore the 1% is affected at X value to clear that condition.
Very good, is that through
Yes.
Chair? The initial submission for this application had a 2-story 1,000 square metre office. We've now got a single story 300 square metre office. So hence why through design things have actually changed to with the application.
And that was through
the $40 million value has come down significantly. Hence why we would prefer to see the 1%.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this juncture? Have we been able to achieve?
Sorry, can I just,
Yes, you can.
just in relation to that, I mean, one, I guess, you can say, well, such other value is agreed by the city, just to handle that, or we just make it 1%, I don't know, but that might be a way of handling that if you've got a question.
So I guess in response to that, because provided there's a mechanism for us to reduce that number, because we know actual fact that our price of loan is $30 million. So we're talking about $100,000.
Yeah, the way the conditions are at the moment, it's not 40, then
Exactly, yeah.
they can't clear it.
Yeah, and actually set a minimum 42. So we then, my concern is we're actually open to, well, maybe not this case, but in another case, if the building permit went in at 45 million and the city would impose the 1%, let's say we then spent 450,000 now because the building permit was 45 million. So I just feel that the condition is quite unreasonable for that.
So it's not for this panel, but you're not foreshadowing the request for reduction of the application fee as well.
No, you can keep that.
Any other questions from panel members? There are no other questions from panel members. We move back to the agenda. We are now dealing with the item. The item has a recommendation at the beginning of the agenda. There is also an alternate recommendation at the end of the raft, and we have had discussions regarding a series of conditions. As is the normal case, I'm going to call for removal of the RA recommendation at the beginning of the item in its entirety, and then we can move from there depending on what members choose. Is there a mover for the recommendation of the RA as contained in the agenda?
Happy to move that, Chair, and foreshadow that consider some amendments.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this? Is there a seconder for the item as written?
I'm happy to second it and might be adding changes to the change.
Thank you.
Adding further changes.
Thank you. Yes, I understand what you're saying. So for the minute taker, the RA recommendation has been moved onto the table in its entirety for discussion. And as I understand from members, there's going to be discussion throughout on potentially a number of matters that have been raised today. We're now moving to the mover to speak to the item.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I suppose the first comment I make is that it's hard to imagine a more logical use for this area than what's being proposed. So, and there's never been any question about that. It's really just a matter of, and generally speaking, it meets all the scheme requirements. It's just a matter of dealing with some of the conditions that have been giving consideration to some of the conditions that have been contested, and I think there's some scope there.
Yes, would you like to speak to any of those?
I'll mention them all, and then you can decide whether you deal with them individually or collectively. But with condition 2A, I think if we just add, or I'm just suggesting we keep that condition and maybe just add marked in red overflow parking, so it's clear that it's the office or the city that's put that on. So that's just after marked. Add the words in red. In relation to condition 2B, the city has agreed to reduce that 3 metres to 2.4, which I understand will still allow, and I think Mr. Hidding, you've said that that will still allow you to have the parking as proposed. And I'd like to add to that there seems to be scope for some deep root zone tree planting there. So maybe add some words to that area to include some was it deep root zone? Is that the correct term? Trees to be planted in that area to the satisfaction of the city, because that will also provide some shade for cars, presumably. In condition 5, yeah, I don't think that's a reasonable condition. That's the legal agreement. I think it's sufficient to have that. It's pretty clear, I think, to me, that this use is not going to require. And I mean, even if a Christmas party or something, they might need a bit of extra parking, it's always there. So, yeah, I don't think it's necessary. And there are other safeguards, like if they want to develop it, they've got to get a planning approval. And following your question about the use classifications, they may need, if someone did want to use it for different kind of warehouses, probably have to seek a development approval anyway, so it could be dealt with at that time. So I'd move that be deleted. In relation to condition 7, I think that in this case, and I understand where the city's coming from, but maybe we just say 1%, then it can be sorted out at the appropriate time. I also understand the concern about delaying the building permit, and whilst I think there is an argument, just like landscape architects always complain that they're asked to deal with things not at the beginning of the design process. I think public art is something that probably should be considered at the beginning of the design process. Having said that, I've never been convinced that public art in industrial areas is all that helpful, but that's a personal opinion. It's got nothing to do with what we're considering today, the policies there. So I think I'm okay with changing that to prior to occupation. I think it's understood that there is a process to go through, quite rightly, and that you'll need to go through that during the course of getting towards well, occupation, if you like. The condition 9, and I was going to ask a question that this, but I didn't. But I'm just wondering if that could be toned down a little bit. It says to include all of those items. And it's mainly the first one, recycled asphalt. Is that? Sorry, can I ask Mr. Hidding? Is that a barrier?
Need a clarification.
Sorry, is that through the chair? Yeah, possibly it is, and that's why we want to remove the specifics of it. We're not against sustainability, but the condition is very specific, and there is potential we can't do some of those things.
I wonder if we, instead of include, have having regard or to consider the following or something like that. So there's direction there as to what the city's thinking, but there it does then give some scope to if there's another way of meeting the intent of that. It's particularly I think materials are usually pretty standard. And the other one, stormwater collection, I think that's a good one. And so maybe let's suggest that rather than being so sort of specific to say include to, or to include consideration of, or consideration for.
Yep, I'm making notes, and when you come back, when you finish your conversation, you can decide whether we're going to do with amendments now.
And condition 11, look, I think we can handle that. I think it's probably 100 employees for a specific use, but it's a standard condition, so I don't think it's too difficult to deal with. Condition 14, I understand again where the city's coming from, but I think that's something that doesn't require a condition of planning approval and can be dealt with operationally. If that event arises, I guess that the concern might be if you do get bigger trucks and you don't do anything about the crossovers, then you're going to damage it, but you'll be responsible for it anyway. And I don't think it'd be a satisfactory way of operating your business anyway. So I think we can delete that. And I think the other conditions have been, the deletion of those have been accepted by the city.
Thank you. That's your comment. Are you seeking to move any amendments at this stage?
Well, I suppose I'll test the feeling and see if there's a second, if I move those in block.
I propose that you move them individually.
Okay.
For both clarity of discussion as well as for minute taking and reasons why.
Do you want me to move those?
So you started with.
I think is there a restriction on how many amendments I think?
There was no restriction on amendments. We have to deal with them, but there's no restriction on them per se. So,
Okay.
So you're going to deal with. We're moving panel. We're dealing with. Let me just get this right. Amendment 1, and that is relating to condition 2A. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, I think we can deal with that and deletion of. Well, just condition A, just to add the words in red between marked. So in other words, to say 120 bays in the area marked in red, overflow parking from the approved plans, and delete condition 5.
Okay, so amendment 1 relates to condition 2A and condition 5. So it's to modify condition 2A and to delete condition 5.
Yep. And condition 2B to change 3 metres to 2.4 metres.
Do you want to deal with them separately because condition 2B
Oh, sorry.
is a slightly different subject matter? Yeah. So no, what I'm suggesting is that the 2B is actually a slightly different subject matter to the
Yeah. So I'm just moving amendment modifications to 2A and deletion of 5. So.
Okay, is there a seconder to amendment 1? It is seconded.
You just second that.
So you seconded, Gabriella. Would we like to speak to that any further?
No, I think I've explained myself in going through it.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to it?
And I think it meets our needs, so I'm comfortable with it as it stands.
Thank you. Any other speakers on the amendment? I will speak to the amendment. My comments are I support deletion of condition KVIC 5. Don't support a modification of 2.1. My position is that 2.1 can be deleted. My rationale for the deleting of that condition rather than modifying the condition is some of it comes from my earlier conversation. My earlier conversation being that there is specific land use written in the scheme for logistics centre that is different in its land use classification or category from warehousing and or showroom, other activities. The scheme does not itself list any parking standards for a logistics centre. The scheme has provision in it for variation of provisions. And from my perspective, there's a rationale for the change, for specifically having a land use classification. Whilst I understand the intention or the thinking behind the offices, and there is a logic to that, from my perspective, adding a nominated area on the basis that it might be needed is is a broader statement that's not really tying to the application that we have in front of us. I'm comfortable with the information that's been provided today regarding the number of staff being 100. I'm satisfied that the on-site parking is suitable for that number of staff as well as guests. I also accept the provision that these types of large-scale logistic operations have increasing and changing business technologies. So from my perspective, I think my key reasons are because the scheme itself has separated out the use. There would be a consideration for any modifications requiring additional planning approval, whether that be in the form of the current application in its building form or configuration, and or whether it is a change of use. So I think there are appropriate triggers to deal with the proposal in terms of nominating a large area. And my final point is that the logistics facility does need appropriate truck on-site parking and on-site manoeuvring. And that is significant and critical for a logistics centre. My planning view is that nominating an area for on-site truck manoeuvring is important and should not be blurred with the possible parking differences in the street and the area. So for those reasons, I don't fully support Amendment 1, I partially support it. Then my comments, we move to the mover for right of reply and close of debate on Amendment 1.
Thank you, Chair. But your argument is very persuasive, but I think that in some respects, in many respects, this condition will satisfy a lot of the concerns raised on both sides. So I'll stick with that amendment.
Thank you.
And see how that goes.
Thank you. The amendment, we've had right of reply and close of debate. We are now going to the vote. I assume members are aware of what we are voting on. All those in favour of Amendment 1? Against? It is carried 3-1. And did you get the vote?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move to Amendment 2. Just let me move down. Okay.
So the Amendment 2 is to change the number 3 metres to 2.4 metres of the building setback areas to the primary street boundary marked in red on the approved plans to be set aside for landscaping, and I'm proposing that the root zone tree planting be put in place. It's not very good wording, but somehow I'll try and that deep,
To include deep root zones.
yeah, in that area.
In that
Yeah.
area.
I won't, because we're sort of flying by the seat of our pants, but here I won't suggest a number, but to the satisfaction of the city. Usually there's a guideline of 1 for every 4 or 5 days, so maybe that's, we could use that. Is that?
I can read out what you've said. What I've taken down, the condition is that Amendment 2 is to modify Condition 2B, changing the words from 3, let me get back to the actual, from 3 metres to 2.4 metres with the provision of deep root planting, or deep soil, not deep root, deep soil landscaping zone to the satisfaction of the city.
Through the chair, can I add something?
Yes, you can.
The area is actually very nicely planted out at the moment and includes quite a few trees. And I would like to add and keep the potential of retaining already existing trees that are there where possible.
Okay, is the mover satisfied with that,
Yes.
that language?
Yes.
Condition 2B for the minute taker is to modify, modification of condition 2, sorry, Amendment 2 is modification of condition 2B to change the language, to change the wording, particularly now it's a 2.4 4 metres with the provision of deep soil landscaping zone for city centre and retention of existing trees where possible.
To the satisfaction of the city.
Okay, would the mover like to speak to that amendment?
No, again, I think yeah, I think having some substantial trees will certainly offset the minor variation in the landscaping policy.
Thank you. Is the seconder like to speak to the item?
No, I'm good.
Sorry. Just need to get this down. Is there any further, guys, any other speakers on this item? Other amendment being 2. No. I don't have any. I will make a comment. So I don't see this as being particularly onerous. It appears to align with the information and comments provided by the applicant, and I would agree that where possible to get substantial landscaping as close within these areas is important, particularly in the street frontage. So I would agree that these changes are minor. They do not appear to impact on the manoeuvrability of the area, site manoeuvrability. Those are my comments. I've actually moved for right of reply and close the debate.
Thank you, Chair. No further comment.
Right of reply has had, debate is closed. We're now going to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously for the minute taker. We're now back to amendments. Do you have any further changes?
Sorry. Oh, yeah. Condition 7, to change the wording to public art on the development site to a minimum value of 1% of construction cost. That's normal. That's how the policy's framed.
Okay.
So take out a value of 400,000 exclusive GST, just to the minimum 1%, minimum value of 1%.
And the other question was in relation to prior to lodgement.
Oh, sorry, thank you. And yeah, prior to occupation.
Okay, the amendments being moved. It's amendment 3. Just give me 1 moment. Amendment 3 is to modify condition 7 as follows, to modify condition 7 to change the words prior to lodging an application for a building permit. It is, the word would now become prior to occupation, and removing the minimum value of 400,000. Is there a seconder for that amendment 3? If there's no amendment, it will fall. If there's no modification, it will fall away. I understand. Is there any seconder? No. If there's no seconder, for the minute taker, this has lapsed. This amendment 3 has lapsed. There is no seconder for the amendment. Okay. Just let me. Okay. Do you want to continue going with your comment? We can come back to this matter in a moment. Sorry, I'm just a bit slow on that. Okay, yes, continue.
Condition 9, I'm suggesting or proposing an amendment to add after the words "add include" consideration for the following.
Yep. Okay. Condition, so we're doing amendment 4, condition 9 to be modified. So that's modify condition 9. And do you want to go through that bit? What are the modifications?
After the word "include," for the semicolon, include consideration for the following. And then it leads on to A, B, C.
Include. So you're adding the word consideration of the following.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. And okay. To be considered. To consider the following. Okay, so does the panel know what's happening here? The amendment that's being put on the table, we'll need a seconder for the amendment. Amendment 4 is to add at the very beginning, as part of 9, is to work after the word include, add the words consider the following. That's correct.
Yep.
Is there a seconder for amendment 4?
Yeah,
Is
I'm
been
happy to
seconded?
So I think it's probably include consideration for or of.
Okay, consideration. I beg your pardon.
Grammar is
Consideration for. Okay, yep. Oh, thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to the item?
Yes, in addition to seconding that amendment, I would also like to recommend that we take out the words on advice of the design review panel, because it is to the satisfaction of the city. The city will consult with whoever they need to, and I don't think there's a need to specify the design review panel.
I'm happy with that, Jeff.
Thank you. So could you modify the amendment, which is to delete those with that language on advice from the design committee? I understand it's on the basis design committee is not a decision maker. Would the seconder like to speak to the amendment?
No, I have no further comment on it. I think sustainability is an important aspect. I believe the applicant is happy to comply with it, and in the manner in which the condition is worded now, there is scope for discussion between the city and the applicant to get the best possible report.
Thank you. Is there any other speakers on panel speaks on that? I will speak to the matter. I understand what the amendments are. I support a component of them. I would be equally happy to have all A to D removed in its entirety and be subject to the first provision, which is a lodgement of a submit a sustainability report to the satisfaction of the city. My view is that that covers everything. I understand the intention being to provide further clarity. I don't think is necessary in this condition. I would also request consideration from both the mover and the seconder to an additional consideration to modify this amendment 4, and that being it's not substantially changing what we've moved onto the table. The question about whether this is prior to lodging a building permit or whether it's prior, whether you're having any changes to that. It's left in there.
So you're suggesting later?
I was suggesting, but it doesn't now. It doesn't. It's not. I'm not strong on it.
Well, so what are you suggesting? Of occupation? Right.
Yes. No, actually, probably no, I can't, because the language of 1 to A to D will not provide for it, because the language includes information that we required as part of earlier stages.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Maybe we could include A, B, C, and D as a footnote, as a guide to. I just see that as maybe helping.
That's okay. You don't have to change it. You've moved
because
on
it's
the
to
table.
the satisfaction of the city.
Yep.
And this just gives the bit of direction as to the sorts of things that are under consideration. It may be more appropriate as a footnote, but it sort of can. I think maybe for simplicity, I'm happy to leave it. Understanding what you're saying, but we can perhaps leave it as part of the condition.
Thank you.
I do. Yeah. recognise your point.
I had no further comments on it. Do you have anything further you'd like to say as a way of reply?
No.
Right of reply has been had. We are now going to the vote on amendment 4, which is to modify condition 9, as indicated by removing the words on advice from the design review panel and adding consideration of the following after the word include. We are going to the vote. All those in favour, condition 4 modifications. That is vote is a unanimous. We are going to, do you have any further changes you wish to make?
No, I think that was it. I missed everything that I mentioned before. And so on.
It's okay. Look, we have a number of other speakers.
Oh, yeah, there was condition 14. Yeah, I am dubious about the validity of that condition, and I agree that it should be with the applicant's request that it be deleted.
We are. Do you want to move as an amendment?
Yeah, I'll move that condition 14 be deleted.
Is there a seconder for condition 14 to be deleted?
I second for condition 14 to be deleted, but I would recommend that it be put in as an advice note. And it should say, and with the further words, and should larger trucks be required, further widening of crossovers is required.
So you're speaking for it to, the condition to be deleted and to be replaced as a advice note. Does the seconder support that?
Yes, Chair. With that addition, with those additional words.
The minute taken clear what's just happened?
Could you just go over the additional words for me,
Yep.
please?
So amendment 6 is in relation to condition 14 is being deleted and is being moved to an advice note with additional wording on the bottom of it. So condition 14 as it reads will move to advice note and include language, and I'll read what I've noted down here, but it might be, if you can reread it in a second, all crossovers to be designed to accommodate the nominated vehicle, maximum vehicle truck sizes. That's what I think you were.
Yeah, no, I just,
You've got some better language than that.
after shall be limited to A double trucks, and should larger trucks be required, further widening of crossovers is required,
Is required or may be required.
may be required.
It wouldn't be all the crossovers, but I
Yeah.
think that can be, I think that's,
Yeah.
there's enough flexibility in that.
Just hang a second. Okay, so for the minute taker, the language then will read condition 14 as it reads, with the additional words at the end being and crossovers may need to be widened to accommodate larger trucks or larger vehicles, I should say, / trucks. Has that covered your question? Does the minute taker? I've got a note of this anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, mover, would you like to speak to the?
No, I don't think I need to say any more, Chair. It is acknowledged that if they do move to bigger trucks, and it's depending on the main roads allowing them access onto that particular road, if that was to happen and they want to use them, then they would want to have a look at their crossovers and make sure that they are adequate to accommodate larger vehicles.
Thank you. If the seconder like to speak to the item.
No, I'm satisfied with the notes, the way in which we're moving it.
Any other speakers on the item? I will concur with the comments that have said. Moving it to an advice note provides, as its nature is intended to, advise to applicant and also taking in that that any changes to vehicle size may require a review of the appropriate access provisions. Those are my comments. As mover, have right of reply. Would you like to make any comments?
Nothing further, Chair.
Right of reply has been had. We are now going to the vote. All those in favour? It is carried unanimous. That is Amendment 6. Okay. We're now going to finish.
Yes.
We're now moving to we're back to the substantive motion. We've been dealing with amendments to that motion. We're on the seconder of substantive to continue to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to go back to conditions 7 and 8, which was the public art condition. And I would like to move that we delete condition 7 and amend condition 8 to read, prior to occupation, a public art concept strategy to the value of 1% of the development shall be implemented and constructed. And because it's in order for the public art to be implemented and constructed, the applicant will have to be speaking to the city about it. So my suggestion is that we actually don't even need condition 7 if we are going to prior to occupation in any event. I think condition 8 meets our requirements.
Okay, so the amendment, it's amendment 7 for minute taker. It is condition 7 to be deleted. And
That amendment 6, Francesca? Might be.
Oh, yes, because one lapsed.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I got you. Sorry.
Just to be clear.
No, that's fine. I just need to just. Sorry, we'll just wait 1 second. I don't get this clear.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we are on amendment 6. Condition 7 to be deleted and condition 8 to be modified. Modified to include the words.
So after the words prior to occupation, we instead of there we put an approved public art concept strategy to the value of 1% of the value of the development shall be implemented. So those are the two, then and to the value of 1% of the value of the development.
Is there a seconder for amendment 6?
Yes, I'll second that.
It is seconded. Member Ian Birch. Would you like to, with the mover, like to speak to the item?
No, I think I've already said what I needed to say.
Would the seconder like to speak to the item?
I'll just other than to say that I think that covers the issue of the uncertainty with the construction value, etc. So yeah, I'm happy with the amendment.
Any other speakers on the amendment?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. I do have a concern with wording of what's proposed with this amendment. The wording of clause 7 and 8 are intertwined; they go hand in hand. So I believe we should expand on the first sentence as amended to include the consultation with the city to come to an agreement with regard to the public art that is proposed, and also include the word minimum in relation to the 1%, so that it it sits in line with the actual policy that pertains to public art.
Okay. Are you asking the mover and seconder to modify information?
Yes, if that could be accommodated.
But I would be comfortable with making those changes.
Yes.
So for the minute taker, the mover and seconder of Amendment 6 are modifying further condition 8. So you've got modified, after the words occupation, it's got modified, an approved, provide an approved public art strategy to a minimum value of 1% of the development to the satisfaction of the city or in consultation with the city. What was the correct comment there?
Yes, for the
Oh, it's
public arts to be consulted with city.
Seek approval from the city.
okay. For the minute taker, the language I have put down here is, and for all of the members, that condition 7's been, the amendment 6 is to remove or delete condition 7. It is to modify condition 8 by adding words after prior to occupation. The words will now read, the beginning word will read, provide an approved public art strategy to a minimum value of 1% of the development and to seek approval from the City of Belmont for the public art strategy. Full stop. The public art, and then it continues on. The public art shall be implemented and artwork constructed, and removing the words condition 7. The artwork shall be maintained. So yeah, what I just said. Okay, so that's condition. Sorry, that's amendment 6. I will.
Yes.
To the amendment, I should say. I'll speak to the amendment. I understand the sentiments and I understand applicants' query regarding the value. In this particular instance, I don't support any changes to either 7 or 8. I propose that it should be maintained. I retain the existing conditions for the following reasons that it's reasonable for the city to include a dollar value. It's reasonable to base that dollar value on the information that's presented as part of this application, which is information that's contained in Form 1 and other documentation that's submitted as part of the application. And therefore it should include a value, the actual number, because I also believe that provides clarity. In saying that, I would concur with the officer's comment that an applicant does have the opportunity and a process to which to provide further substantiated information and documentation on any construction costs that then can be reflected as a dollar value through an amended condition. I have some reservations about, I understand the intent that is attempted to be undertaken through this modification. However, I am concerned that the modification creates more ambiguity than it's really achieving. And I think there is, as already indicated, a legal mechanism, a planning mechanism to provide that information. The documentation for this application clearly talks about a dollar value, and that's not been altered in any way, shape or form as part of the information that we've received. So for those reasons, I don't support the Amendment 6. I support retaining the condition for the reasons I've given. Those are my comments. I move back to the mover for right of reply and close of debate.
I do see that there's value in what you're saying, and it is true that the value of the development application as it stands would dictate what the value of the artwork should be. Maybe I am happy to go with what you are recommending and we don't make any changes.
So
Yeah, that is all right.
Okay, right replies been had. We are now going to the vote. We are on amendment 6. All those in favour? Against?
Oh, sorry, I was.
Sorry, saying it. All those in
I'm
favour?
in favour of the amendment as I seconded it.
Thank you. Against? For the minute taker, it is lost. The vote is 1-3 lost. Susan, I usually write wrong way around. Okay, we are back to the substantive motion. We are still with member Gabriella. Would you like to continue speaking?
I've only got another 2 items. Just
Yes.
to give everybody a chance to realise that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Condition 26, I would like to suggest that that be put in as an advice note. The city has indicated that they were comfortable with that, and it just we didn't get to the end of these changes, so I just would like to move that becomes an advice note. And then I would like to add a new condition for the birch trees, to protect the birch trees.
We just said, I just
Oh,
don't
sorry. Okay, let's
hold
do
you
that
there.
one first.
Being very pedantic, but it
That's good.
makes it clearer for the decision. So we are dealing with condition amendment 7, condition 26, and that is to move that condition to an advice note, leaving the language the same. It is moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded, member Ian Birch. Do you want to speak to that?
No, I have nothing further to say.
Seconder like to speak?
No.
Anybody else wish to speak? I'll put it straight to the vote, seeing there's no other speakers. All those in favour? Is carried unanimously for the minute taker.
Then my final motion is to include one further condition that existing street trees are to be protected from damage during all phases of development and shall not be pruned or removed without further approvals from the town, from the city.
This is a new condition. Can you slow that down just a second so I can capture what you've just said? New condition to be added. The numbering will need to be reflective of this, of course. New condition to be added that existing street trees are to be protected. Yes.
From damage during all phases of development and shall not be pruned or removed without further approvals from the city.
From the city of Belmont. Okay, has the minute taker got it down?
Yes.
I have. Is there a seconder for amendment 8? It is seconded. Would the mover like to speak to the amendment 8?
Yeah, I believe that street trees are really valuable, and even if a developer comes in and has really good intentions not to damage them, they do end up with some damage somewhere along the line. And I just think it's worthwhile to have a condition to protect them and ensure that that greenery in that industrial area at least remains.
Would the seconder, member Christopher Kulczynski, would you like to speak to the motion?
Very briefly, I support this amendment. It's a logical change and reflects the sentiment of the residents of the city.
Any other speakers on the amendment?
Chair, I'd be happy. I'd support it if it was an advice note. I don't believe that it requires a planning approval. I think there are measures council already has the authority to enforce the protection of their street trees. I totally agree with the sentiment of the proposal, but I don't know whether it's. I don't think it's required as a planning condition.
Um,
I'd be happy, I'd support it as advice, no.
Any other speakers? I'm asking. I agree with all parties on this. To take your point, I'm happy to leave it as a condition at this juncture. You are correct in that it's probably could equally be an advice note because it's sitting outside of the physical development site. I think I'm comfortable either way. I'd leave, yeah. So I'll leave it up to the mover whether or not you want to make changes. Going back to you for right reply in
Thank you, through the chair. I'm comfortable to have it as a condition. I think there's not 100% clarity on street trees and whether they should be advice notes or whether they should be conditions. So I'm happy to go slightly stronger.
Right reply has been had. We are now going to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously for the minute taker. That is amendment 8. Does the seconder wish to speak or the substantive wish to speak any further?
I believe the proposal is a significant investment that is appropriate in its context and its land use. With the changes to the conditions, I believe the proposal is comprehensive and meets the needs of the city and of the applicant. So I will be supporting this proposal with its changes.
Thank you. We've had the, sorry. Any other speakers on the substantive motion? Sorry. I will speak to the substantive motion. I concur with the commentary that's been provided. The proposal is an appropriate use in its context. There's been a number of modifications to conditions to clarify further matters. There are a couple of things that I'd like to raise, and those are that there were 3 conditions that were conditions 16, 19 and 25, all of which my notes, refer to my notes, both the city and the applicant concurred with the deletion. Let me quickly go back to that. I'll just seek confirmation. Is that correct? Thank you. That was my understanding. So I am going to move an amendment. My amendment is amendment 9. Are we on the same number?
Yes.
Amendment 9, and it is for the deletion of conditions 16, 19 and 25. And the reason for the deletion is not considered quite necessary at this juncture. For the reasons as outlined in the information provided in the article and the applicant's submission. Is there a seconder to amendment 9? It is seconded. Gabriella Ponzi I have nothing else further to say. Does the seconder wish to move to speak to the motion?
No.
Is any other speakers on amendment 9? No further speakers. There's nothing further for me to say. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously for the minute taker. I have no further comments on the proposal. Let me quickly scan down. No. We move back to the mover for right of reply and close the debate on the substantive motion. That is for members and those listening, inclusive of all of the amendments have been carried.
Thank you, Chair. I think, as I said, it's a most logical use for the site. I think it's been well assessed and well debated today, and happy to move it with those amendments.
Thank you. The right of reply has been had on the substantive motion. We are going to the vote, members, inclusive of all of the amendments have been carried. All those in favour? It is carried unanimously. The substantive motion is carried unanimously. On that juncture, it is, let me get back to my note. We have completed item 3.1. There are no Form 2 applications There are no reconsiderations of SACT information, and at this juncture, it is 11:25, and we are changing panel members. We are now dealing with the town of Victoria Park.
Finished.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. See you later.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Try and entice Luke down to.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Take a seat along. You can sit. Oh, so when you get called up, just come up to this screen here and we'll share the video.
No problem.
Yeah. Step in wherever you can. Hello. Sorry, it's a bit quiet in here.
No one's going to be sitting on that chair. So
Should we move that chair then?
probably, yeah.
Put it in the corner? Well, morning. How are you?
Do you guys need a break?
I might
Stretch
go
your
to
legs.
the toilet.
That's on YouTube now.
Very nice. Share that.
Any of the presenters online, do you know?
No. If there's any specific questions, we've got a couple of people online, but
Perfect.
I
can promote them to panelists
you can
as
bring them,
needed. Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, we have minute taker on board. We will now be commencing part C of our agenda. It is 11:28 a.m. or p.m. And we now have a change of panel members. We have two new panel members with us from the town of Victoria Park. That is Councillor Peter Melrosa and Councillor Daniel Minson. And we also have the officers and the applicant here. As is the case, we will move back to, or we move to item 1, declaration of due consideration in relation to this part of the agenda. Could I have a show of hands for duly considerable matters before we on today's agenda? That is unanimous for the minute taker. Members, are there any disclosures of interest in relation to part C?
Yes.
Would you like to give explanations?
The impartiality interest on part C item 3.1. So I've deliberated on this item through the town of Victoria Park Council, which endorsed the officers' report as amended during the special council meeting on the 18th of March. And the meeting included a deputation from the impartiality.
Impartiality interest has been provided. Approval is granted for full participation in this item, and that includes voting on the item in accordance with the JDAP standing orders. A second interest provision.
And mine is also the exact same partiality interest on the same matter. I voted in a council decision in relation to this item.
Thank you. Second interest has been provided. It's an impartial interest in accordance with the standing orders. Full participation is granted for inclusion and discussion on this item, including voting on the item. We are now moving forward to the item itself, which is item 3.1. We have no. I'm on. That's my second. I'm on the wrong page. 3.1. Yep. Sorry. All right, on 3.1, we have our presenter, Mr. Tim Parker. I probably should have said this at the last session, but I didn't. As you're probably aware, there's been a change to the JDAP standing orders. It's a 3-minute time frame. So we encourage you to focus on the key elements. How do you get over to yourself?
Yeah, just pull up that chair and then start video when you're ready.
Sure. And we'll get the presentation up.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
Yeah, Laura.
No problem.
Going up there.
Yes, it will get screen shared up there. You good, Laura?
So thank you all for your time today, and we'll keep it very brief. I think, look, first off, we would just like to thank the town for their administration, for their consideration of the proposal. It was a very collaborative and cooperative process throughout, that sort of befits the development, which has had a lot of community interest and is has a well liked and loved by the community. So we're really happy with the officers' RAR and the conditions. You would have all seen some requests for minor amendment or support for the wording specifically. So maybe on the next slide and the one after that, sorry. So we'd just like to reiterate our support for conditions 5A, 5B and 5D as supported by council. Generally, these are all in relation to flexibility around opening hours, which are very important to Black Oak and their future operations. Moving to condition 6E, 3. So I understand, as you would have seen, the town's agreed to amended wording, which adds to this the addition of reference to other brick buildings, which we support. We support that amended wording. In relation to condition 11, you would see our requested amendment there, removing reference to the specific location and number of cargo bays. Again, this is just to provide a larger degree of flexibility to the location of cargo bays. The town and their condition, so our proposal is consistent with the town administration's recommended condition 11. And I would also note there's an additional advice note that makes reference to the inclusion of parking for cargo bays, and this is something that's certainly being considered. There is currently planned approximately 60 bays across the site, and that will include provision for cargo bays. However, just in terms of the location and the number of specific bays, we just request that this reference be removed and contained, I suppose, more within the existing advice note. In regard to condition 42, and it's important, I guess, to note that this was one added by council at their special council meeting. Sort of in agreement with the council administration, we recommend that this be and request that this be included as an advice note for the reasons given on screen and that you would have seen before. This is something that we are considering and Black Oak are considering, but we feel it's inappropriate to include this as a condition. It's certainly something we're open to working towards, but feel the requirement is better placed as an advice note rather than a condition. And then finally, in regard to the eco-cultural path, so we've requested an additional advice note, which again, I believe council has supported.
the wording of. So again, this just provides greater flexibility and clarification to condition 21, in which the eco-cultural path and this interface between the development to the south and the southern boundary of our development just provides further opportunity for the town and the applicant to come to an agreed position through detailed design to achieve something that both the town and the applicant are satisfied with. So hopefully I've got my 3 minutes there. We do have members of the team, architect, town planning, traffic and landscape, as well as the developer here to answer any questions you have. But thanks for your time, and again, thanks to the town for their consideration.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions to the applicant?
Just one, Chair.
Yes, we've got one here, and then we move.
What are cargo bikes?
Cargo bikes are sort of longer or larger bikes with space for kids to sit on the back, or a large tray to take your shopping with. So generally speaking, I used to work at bike shops, so I'm maybe uniquely able to answer that question.
Do you see them in Denmark, places like that?
Yeah, so they're becoming a lot more popular. Coming from Europe, and I think certainly around the town, taking kids to things like daycare, it's something that you're seeing a bit more of. So certainly something we're considering and looking to include as part of the overall development.
Always an education.
Member Daniel Linson, you also have a question.
Condition 6E, Roman numeral 3, that the changes to the monitoring for just the rotunda. You were at the officers' amendment to include all the brick buildings?
Yes, no, we're aware of that and supportive of it, yes.
On condition 11, the cargo bikes, do you have any kind of preliminary design intent of where those bays would be moved to, like from the, I guess, the first condition?
Yeah, absolutely. So within the DA report, you would have seen some of the locations for bike storage, and that's the areas in which we're exploring. So there's sort of 3 key locations. And that would generally be the place we're still exploring parking for bikes as well as cargo bikes to be located. So I think the reference to the specific location is something we're hoping to get a bit more flexibility on to allow for the consideration and the inclusion of cargo bays within the areas we're already planning on including bike parking.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes.
Couple more, sorry. On the condition 42 on the universal access to level 1, do you have like a preliminary cost estimate for what provision for a lift would cost?
I don't. Look, I defer to the Black Oak as the developer, but my understanding is we haven't got anything specifically, but so it was hard to estimate, but my understanding of it cost in the vicinity of hundreds of thousands.
For the lift itself, we ran $150,000, but there's other works attached to that as well. Structural works, works to upgrade stairs and that sort of thing to bring the compliance levels up. So yeah, that would be the starting point.
So I think that sort of speaks to our certainly openness to consider the inclusion of a lift, noting that that first floor, as you might be aware, is wholly to be used as office space for the administration and management of the building. We've also included universally accessible office space and entry facilities on the ground floor as it currently stands. Notwithstanding, given the kind of the direction from the council and the other week, we're certainly, like I said, open to including it, but there are a number of design considerations that we need to work through, notwithstanding as well as we've noted that the lift would require re-referral to the Heritage Council Western Australia. So So again, just to work through those design considerations to obviously the unknown factor of having a third party needing to make a decision to have the condition be fulfilled, we feel it's best placed as an advice note.
Thank you. And just to clarify that, do you feel that there was any trip for the facilities on the ground floor? Oh, because I noticed that on level 1.
Yeah, so there's some universally accessible toilets and facilities on the ground floor that are for the venue management staff.
And last one, I think we've been discussing with the town about on-site composting and the opportunities there. So I was just wondering your opinion on if you had an issue with an advice note that would read like are encouraged to consider opportunities for on-site composting as part of the waste management strategy for the site.
Yeah, we'd be happy to consider that, yes.
Any questions next? May I please ask a question around the accessibility issue? If someone was employed in that hospitality or whatever arrangement that's going on, would there be a place for them to have an office, or is that how it works, that they would be accommodated on the ground floor?
That's correct. So there's some space on the ground floor. I mean, it obviously doesn't have to be solely used by someone that would have difficulty accessing the first floor, but there is space provided on the ground floor for administrative purposes. Yeah.
And then, so that would mean there wouldn't be an example of where someone couldn't be employed in this arrangement, Black Oak arrangement, because there wouldn't be a place for them to work, or they wouldn't be able to access a certain part of the office that they would need to work in. They would be able to be working on the ground floor.
Yes,
yeah.
they would.
So that whole arrangement is the same, or is it segmented in any way, or is it just one operation that is across both floors?
It would be the whole operation across both floors. I think I'm not sort of aware of the details of how that would necessarily be managed from a personnel perspective or anything like that, but it would be the same sort of entity, a company, whatever, across both floors. Yeah, so there wouldn't be any issues with being able to employ someone who would have difficulty accessing the first floor.
Any other questions to the applicant at this juncture? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to officers of town. The number of officers listed. No, we don't. I don't have one officer listed. The officer would like to make comments on the proposal on the requested amended conditions or on the third.
I think it's all relatively self-explanatory, to be honest. I think the report speaks for itself. The Reg 13 response confirming that we're in general agreement with the applicant's requested modifications to conditions, again, speak for themselves. So I think I'm happy just to take any questions.
Thank you. Members, are there any questions to town? Yes.
Thank you. I just have a question on condition 6. It says information to Director Historic Heritage Conservation of this town, of the Heritage Council, or who is this?
This particular condition exactly reflects the wording requested by the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage. So it'd be the heritage part of the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage.
Yeah, okay. Maybe that's a bit clearer. I also have another question. Conditions 19 and 20 refer to the retention of trees on the verge as their town assets. I would have thought that the trees on the park are also town assets, and potentially they need to be included in those conditions. Would you have any concerns if we expand the condition to include the trees in the park?
I think as you'll find, conditions 16 and 17 already probably contain sufficient controls around the trees on the private property itself. Yes, conditions 19 and 20 are, I guess, ideally with the trees outside the private property. I don't think there's a need for 19 or 20 to be amended. I mean, you're correct that they are a town asset also, as the private property is owned by the town, but again, I think condition probably more so condition 17, which talks about tree retention, sufficiently covers that.
Thank you. And any further questions? Yes.
Good Chair. On the condition 42, had to learn some Latin on the culture virus, which I think means that approval is required or the power to get that thing done as a third party. Is it your analysis that kind of legality applies to that condition as the applicant?
Our view, as reflected in the officer recommendation, is that I guess the provision of a lift for universal access, there's a sound there's a sound reason as to why that's being pursued, but our view is it's not appropriate as a planning condition because it's not serving a planning purpose. It's essentially deferring to require compliance with a separate set of legislation, which is the National Construction Code. So that's why we have suggested that that's better placed in advice note rather than condition. Thank you.
Any other questions from panel members at this junction?
This one.
Yes.
On the same condition. So there's been commentary about if there was a condition for universal access and it was deemed at a later stage that it was unpractical, could not be met, that the condition could then subsequently be revoked or not, not pursued. Those types of concerns raised by the applicant about why it's not an applicable condition. Would those types of reasonings or justifications at a later date be the justification required that if it was a condition that it would need to be met? Those same arguments were applied at a later date that it would seem to be unreasonable to pursue the.
So I suppose my professional advice in the first place, I don't believe it's appropriate as a condition. It should be an advice note, but if the DAP today were to impose condition 42 as a condition, then yes, there's an obligation on the applicant to deliver upon that requirement to provide universal access. If the applicant were to go away, do the investigations, and it was found for one reason or another that the applicant isn't able to comply with that, then there's scope for the applicant to come back through a Form 2 process to amend conditions or delete conditions, and obviously there'd be the appropriate opportunity for the applicant to put forward why that condition should be removed. But again, I'd say in the first point, our view is it's not appropriate as a condition in the first place.
Any further questions? Yes.
Just on condition 23, the details of proposed external colours, etc., will be provided to the town on an application for building permit. It's my understanding that those kind of details are of interest to the state heritage, and they would have already provided comment around what they deem to be acceptable around that. And I'm just wondering what opportunity will there be, or what chance would there be that those materials change at some point and they are not then viewed again by the State Heritage Council or whoever it is. How does that work?
What's the condition number?
Condition 23.
Yeah, 2 seconds. It seems that maybe through condition 6 has been requested by Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage. There's nothing specifically amongst that makes reference to the final details being to come before the Heritage Council through that condition at least. But I would say as a matter of practice, in terms of applying condition 23, it'd be fair to say that the town's officers probably lack the expertise or knowledge in terms of what might be the appropriate colours, materials and finishes for a heritage building. So I'd say through the, I guess, the process of clearing condition 23, we're likely to seek the comments of both the Heritage Council as well as our own design review panel.
Would it be then worth putting that in there, or would that just be taken as granted that we would do that?
Well, I guess that's a decision for the panel to make. I would say this happens. It's going to happen as a matter of practice, but there maybe would be some benefit in making that a little bit clear, albeit obviously it needs to be worded that it's not subject to the approval of the Heritage Council and the design review panel. It would be ultimately subject to the satisfaction of the town based upon the advice of the Heritage Council and the town's design review panel.
Any other questions to town officers? If there's no other questions to town officers, we are moving to the agenda. There is a recommendation at the beginning of the RA, recommendation further in the RA, and there's been some commentary regarding conditions. As is the normal case, we're going to call for a mover and seconder of the recommendation as written at the beginning of the RA. Is there a mover for the recommendation as written at the beginning of the RA? It is moved, member Daniel Minson. Is there a seconder to the recommendation? Is there a seconder? So it is seconded, member Peter Melrosa. Would the mover like to speak to the item?
Yes, and I'm proposing some amendments. So we want to move the amendments first. Or?
Yep, can do. So we're going to amendment 1 for the minute taker, and would the member like to provide commentary?
Yeah, so it's the amendment that I circulated. So for the insertion within the responsible agencies report on 3.1 for advice note 10 or AN10, Blackgate are encouraged to consider opportunities of on-site composting as part of the waste management strategy for the site.
So that's amendment 1 is a new advice note. Is there a seconder for the new advice note? It is. Yes, we have all received your material. Thank you. It has been seconded. Member Peter Melrosa. Would you like to continue speaking to the motion? Sorry, amendment, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, just for the benefit of the panel, I would say that the site's going to generate quite a bit of food waste. There's a bistro and bar and all aware and bakery, and both there's a petting zoo, so like animal manure, which is currently proposed to be regularly removed off site. But I just see that there's an opportunity here with the large on-site garden proposed for productive use, and also the town's adjacent parkland, that there'll be a demand for the compost. So seeing that synergy on-site composting would lead to positive economic, social and environmental outcomes, and it would align with the proponents' sustainability commitments in their report there around the circular economy commitment. Waste management plans.
Would seem like to speak to the amendment.
Other than to say it's just a really good idea. I agree.
Any further speakers to the amendment? So no further speakers, we'll go straight to the vote by passing obviously for a vote reply. All those in favour of amendment 1 for a new advice note? It's carried unanimously. Would the mover like to continue speaking?
Yes, I'll just speak to the motion in general, or some other amendments proposed, but the development's an exciting project for the town of Victoria Park. We're activating our only state level heritage asset for our community, which is a great outcome. And we're getting a lot of variety of uses on the site, so great outcome that we'll have activity there at the kind of a lot of the time of the day and over the week as well, which is good for reasons around safety as well as just getting the most out of the asset. So I think, yeah, the development combined with the park upgrades that the town's proposing, it's going to be a nice, vibrant and green area for our community to enjoy. And I'd also just like to thank the Town of Victoria Park, the officers and the elected members who've been working hard to see a good outcome here. Just pass on my thanks as a new member. I appreciate all the hard work that's come before. So yeah.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Don't know how I could trump that. It's pretty good, but look, this property's been vacant for as long as I can remember, fences up for as long as I can remember, a good 30 something plus, maybe even 40 years. And it kind of just disappeared out of view from the community. So finally having something happen here is arguably going to be one of the best things the town will probably ever see happen. Again, it's a state heritage building, our own one, and to have it sit there vacant for such a long time is a bit of a travesty. This part of Big Park isn't really considered Big Park. I think when people think Big Park, they think further down, East Big Park and Big Park proper. But there's been a lot happening up this end of the town, and it is a bit of a gateway to the town. And I think this is going to really help that part of our town grow and prosper. Yeah, it's a great plan. Looking forward to seeing it. And yeah, thanks everyone for working together on it. It's a difficult site, obviously, and I think the outcome's pretty good. Well done.
Thank you. Any further speakers on the motion?
Yeah, yes, if I may, thank you, Ma'am. I would like to do an amendment to condition 6.
Yes.
To actually stipulate that the Director Historic Heritage Conservation at the Department of Lands and Heritage, so that the conditions can stand on its own and everybody knows who they're actually referring to.
Okay, just 1 2 seconds. Let me get condition. Okay, so we're talking amendment 2 is condition 6 modification at the beginning, at the very front end of it. Following information shall be submitted to. Could you just read your language out, please, again?
Information to Director Historic Heritage Conservation, which is in the condition at the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage. So basically just those words being inserted.
Okay.
And the way I see it, there has not been any, nobody's moved to move condition 42 to be replaced with an advice note, and I think that is an appropriate way to go. It is that is the condition. Sorry, you want to wait?
Can we,
of
I'd
course.
like to
I'm
separate
sorry.
that into.
I'm a little bit ahead of myself.
And so,
So
now,
I'll second that.
oh, thank you.
First condition.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No, it's right. There were also commentary regarding modification to the condition 6E. Are you dealing with that? As part of condition.
We certainly can.
So for the minute taker, we are dealing with the a variety of changes within condition 6. The first part of that is at the beginning, the very beginning, and the second part of that is in relation to E3, 3EI, what do they call it? E or didn't it?
Chair, is it possible we can get that the submission we had from the applicants up on the screen?
Could so the submission, the applicant submission, is that what you're asking for?
Yeah.
So on the information that was presented us, we have both applicant and city responses. So we've got applicant response to conditions, and at the back end is the city's response to that as well. Could you first go to the applicant? Yep, to be further up.
That one up. That one. Condition 63.
That's the applicants, and the city's one has got red wording with it, which talks about and other brick buildings. After the blue wording, it says and other brick buildings.
So if you go down to, so what's this condition, 6E, the Roman numeral 3, applicant has talked about a modification in blue. Can you go down further in this same document? It should have the city's response to.
No,
Are they in separate documents, are they?
Yeah.
No, print that one.
It's the R13. Yeah, that's the one. That's what I'm trying to get it down to. The R13.
I'll just send it to you here, Laura.
There's additional words at the bottom of it.
I'll send it directly to you.
So the language that actually is, there are two types of language. One is that the applicant's board, the city set it to modification, which includes additional few words to it and other. E3, are you moving one, any changes? Two, is the change as from the applicant? Three, is the change as by the town? Four, is it a different change altogether?
I am moving 2 changes under Amendment 2 to Condition 6. The one is Director of Historic Health at the DPRH, and the other one as per the town's recommendation, which says brick buildings.
Okay, I've made a note of that. I understand that. Do the members understand what's just been moved on the table?
Chair, just to be clear that the applicants have asked for the blue wording during demolition of underground works in close proximity to the rotunda building. So we're including that plus
the red wording as well. Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what's being moved on the table. Is there is a seconder? I've got you down as the seconder. Are you comfortable continuing to be the seconder? Okay, so Amendment 2 for the minute taker has got 2 components to it. It's been moved and seconded. Would the mover of the Amendment 2 want to continue speaking?
No.
Would the seconder like to speak?
No.
Members, is there any members that would like to speak to the amendment? I have no comments either. Do you want to ratify? We are now going straight to the vote. We are on Amendment 2, some modifications. All those in favour? It is carried unanimously for the minute taker. Back to the substantive motion. Would the second like to continue speaking? You had another.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yes. Condition 42. I would like to recommend that we replace that as an advice note, remove it as a condition, and replace it as an advice note. So it's Amendment 3.
Thank you. Minute taker, you've got the Amendment 3 that's been moved. Is there a seconder for Amendment 3?
Yes.
It has been seconded. Would the mover like to speak to the item?
No. I do. Yes, I would like to speak to. I can just that as a condition, I think it's too onerous, and I think there are so many uncertain elements in this requirement that need to be worked through before it could actually be a condition. But I think there is some validity in investigating whether accessibility can be universal accessibility can be achieved, but I don't believe it is appropriate as a condition.
I would say like to speak to this amendment.
Yes. Sorry.
Sorry.
I agree with the comment that I doubt with the validity of the condition and the planning conditions of development approval. I understand the sentiment, and I think the applicants will do their best, but in particular with a heritage building, there are all sorts of sensitivities that may preclude the inclusion of the lift might be worse than the effect on the heritage building might be worse than the meeting the inclusion standards in this case, but it is going to be considered. So yeah, I think it's best as the or more appropriate as an advice note.
Any other speakers on Amendment 3? I'll speak to Amendment 3. I'll concur with the moving it to an advice note. I would concur with the comments that have been made in relation to potential questions around validity of planning. I would also echo that it's fully support the all activities in as many as is possible to get access, universal access to all parts of the public spaces or the staffing spaces within the building. However, I acknowledge that there's a balancing act between various different pieces of legislation, and I think it's appropriate that it becomes a condition as opposed to a mandatory requirement, and those elements will play through the next phases, both under the building provisions as well as under heritage provisions, and where necessary, may or may not need further planning input into it. Those are my comments. Back to the movable right of reply.
No further comment.
We are going to the vote on Amendment 3. All those in favour? Is carried unanimously for the minute taker. We are back on substantive. Would you like to continue speaking?
Yeah, I'm jumping around a little. Condition 11, the bike facility, the applicant requested changes as to a portion of the condition to be deleted on the understanding that these bike facilities can provide.
Attention please, attention please. Essential fire services are conducting testing of the alarm system and emergency warning. Please ignore the following alarms as it is just a test. Repeat, Central Fire Services are currently conducting testing of the alarm system and emergency warning. Please ignore the following alarms as it is just a test. Thank you.
So you're on to amendment. You were talking about condition.
On to Amendment 4, which is in relation to condition 11.
Yes.
Which is the bike facilities. There was a requirement for the cargo bikes to be provided, parking for the cargo bikes to be provided close to the childcare facility. The applicant has requested that that condition be amended. I can see value in that condition being amended. So I would like to move that we go with the applicant's request and delete the requirement for cargo bike parking near the childcare centre.
Amendment 4 is a modification to condition 11 using the language that is in the applicant's requested modification for the minute taker. Is there a seconder to Amendment 4?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that. Yeah.
It is seconded. Would the mover of Amendment 4 like to speak to the item?
No, I think I've said more than I should.
Would the seconder like to speak to it?
Just a note that the officers have supported the amendment. Certainly the intention of that condition is a very sound one, but I think that it's going to be dealt with rather than sort of putting the applicants in a straitjacket as to what they can do. It allows some flexibility, but clearly the intent is important.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this amendment? I will speak to the amendment. I support the amendment. I also support both the principles, the applicant's wording, as well as the council's intention. However, on balance, I am comfortable that it gets removed. The reason for removing it is that I think we are going to see, as we advance in terms of our transport needs in and around Perth, we're going to see a whole lot of new forms of transport coming in, and we have a number of those already in place. They are becoming more and more frequent around, and I would like to see that the provision of cargo bays, which cargo bike bays is fantastic, or parking cargo bike bays is fantastic. I don't believe it's appropriate and necessary. I do think that if we're going to go down that path, we start to need to rethink about some of the other bays that we provide for cars. And we do see these now in some of the inner urban areas where I'm seeing more and more use of these types of bays with kids and or other things in them, like food, etc., or animals. Yep. So I don't think separating out at this point is necessary.
An incident has been detected in the building. Please prepare to evacuate and wait further instructions.
It's just
An incident has been detected in the building. Please.
So those are my comments. I think there's a bigger issue in terms of how we balance out parking with bicycles when we start incorporating these other forms of bikes that are bigger than the regular bikes that we're used to. So I support the amendment. Would the mover like to have a right of reply? No, I'm good. Right of reply is not necessary at this stage. We're now going straight to the vote. All those in favour of Amendment 4? It's carried unanimously. Back to yourself. Would you like to continue speaking?
I think this will be the last one, which is the new advice note that is to be linked to condition 21 on the ecological path.
Attention please, attention please. The fire alarm test is now complete. Repeat, the fire alarm test is now complete. Thank you.
We're going to Amendment 5, which is a new advice note. Like to.
The city has no, the town has got no concerns with that new advice note being added. I think it's appropriate, and for the sake of completeness, I think we should just make it an advice note.
Thank you. Is there a seconder to the advice note? Is seconded? Would you like to speak to it? Would the mover like to speak to it?
No.
Secondly, would you like to speak to the
No,
advice note? Any members, any other speakers to the advice note? There are no other speakers to the advice note. We are going straight to the vote with Amendment 5. All those in favour? It is carried unanimously. Would you like to keep speaking?
I am. Thank you.
We are now back to substantive motions. Any further conversation on the substantive motion?
So just to clarify, did we get the additional advice notes that were connected with the removal of the universal access condition? Was that moved into the advice note?
Yes.
Okay.
So we've moved.
Attention please, attention please. The fire alarm test is now complete. I repeat, the fire alarm test is now complete. Thank you.
We've got the advice note. Amendment 1 was the initial, the new advice note regarding the one that was moved on. And Amendment 2 was modification to condition 6. Amendment 3 was condition 42 to be moved to advice note. That's the one you're referring to. Amendment 4 was condition 11, modification using applicant wording, and Amendment 5 is a new advice note. So all of those have been carried and form part now of the substantive motion.
Thank you. And I'd just like to move a conditional amendment.
Yes.
Just around condition 5, I'd like to move the town's officer's recommendation at the bottom of the authority report around the opening times, the different facilities. So as moved to change, I guess, condition 5 as presented by the town.
So Amendment 6 is condition 5 modification. Let me just quickly get to that.
I believe the substantive motion that is at the beginning of the report already includes the opening times as.
Yes, the member is moving, as I understand, I'll clarify it. The member is moving a modification to the RA agenda at the beginning and is using the wording in the officer's or the alternate recommendation at the back of at the end of the RA. Is that correct?
Yep.
Let me just quickly get to that. I'm just going to jump up and down. Yeah. Are you referring to all of those A, B, C, D, E?
Yes, so the 6:30 arrival time for staff at the childcare to 7 o'clock arrival for the children. With the reasoning that aligns with the rest of the town of Victoria Park's childcare facilities, and it also aligns with the noise requirements that outdoor play is restricted to 7 o'clock, and that's the officer's recommendation that it would be enforceable through actual planning requirements. requirement rather than operational staff having to keep children inside for the early part of the day. The second point is to remove the function space and move that into separate condition for the opening times, which removes the ability to open till midnight on a Thursday, while keeping Thursday midnight trading available for the bar and bistro, with the reasoning that on the Thursday at the function centre, that the difference between wrapping up at a function centre compared to a bar and bistro, that a function centre would end at the same time and all the patrons would leave at the same time. So on a Thursday night, it's foreseeable that at midnight you'd have 100+ patrons of the function centre coming out and impacting the amenity of the local residents. And yeah, the other change is to the market, to the officer's recommendation that the market can function 1 day a week, with the understanding that there's quite an intensive land use, that we've got potential, hundreds of people coming to the site and needing to park around the town to attend the market, and that's quite a significant change for the residents in the local area. And the intent was that these conditions give enough flexibility to change and upgrade to more events or extended trading for the other items too, but gives the ability to, I guess, have some controls at the start of this development and operations to see how it's operating, and it gives the town the discretion to change those operating rules if it's being functional and working for everybody in the community.
Okay, so just before we go to the seconder, we're dealing with Amendment 6, which is modification to Condition 5, the one that's currently on the table, and we are referring back to the alternate recommendation at the back. So I just want to get clarity as to what we're dealing with. What I've taken down is that you're moving onto the table a modification to Condition 5 using the officer's alternate recommendation 5, and you agree with the language in 5A, B, and C. Is that what you're saying? Or you agree with all of it? I'm going to come to the function centre and the markets in a second.
Yeah, A, B, C, and D, and I think there's an additional E.
So your amendment is to use the language as written in its entirety, and so the comments that you were providing were your comments on the amendment. Yep. Okay. So what's being moved onto the table, if we get a seconder, is a modification to Condition 5. It's using the language as contained in the officer's alternate recommendation at the end of the RAR, which occurs on RAR page 41, and it is being moved in its entirety for that language as contained at the back there. Does everybody understand what I just said?
Except there's an additional condition E.
Yeah, because the restriction,
which is in.
So in the one at the back, here I'll show you because I've pulled it up. So what this one says, I can't put them together. Sorry.
Yeah.
So this,
okay.
so what the member was talking about was he's moving the whole of the alternate recommendation, officer recommendation 5, A through E, in place of the current substantive that we've got on the table. And that, let me just get that. Does that make sense to you? Okay, just 1 second. Okay, is there a seconder for amendment 6?
Oh, sorry, Amendment 6.
Yes, Amendment 6, Condition 5. Yep, we've carried that. So we're dealing with alternate language. Sorry, I've got to take it. So the current recommendation has 4 A to D. They are some modifications, and the alternate is back at the rear. Is there a mover for the? Sorry, is there a seconder for Amendment 6? There's no amendments going to lapse. For the minute taker, it has lapsed. We move back to the agenda. It lapsed as no seconder. We're back on the substantive motion. Is there any other speakers on the substantive motion? I will speak to the substantive motion. The proposals.
Sorry, I did want to speak on the substantive motion as amended.
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Oh, my apologies.
You can speak. You go.
Well, just very.
So which one are we speaking?
Sorry.
So you, sorry, Anna,
Oh,
did you
okay.
move the motion? The
No,
substantive-
no.
Okay,
Sorry.
so see, we haven't gone
I
back
thought
to
you were
right
closing.
side. No, somebody else is
Yeah,
closing.
right.
So my comments on the substantive motion are, I think, the reuse of the site that has been vacant for many years, including the reuse of the heritage building, is a very positive development for both the local area and the town. It's also consistent with the planning framework, and it will be great to see a significant development of this nature occur. There are a number of provisions put in place in order to address the normal areas that could cause concern in relation to amenity. And I note that the bulk of the site, there's only a portion of the site that we're actually subject to gutting, and it's a substantial portion of the site that includes amenity areas for the community that are being retained and don't form part of this development. They are my comments on the substantive, inclusive of all of the amendments. Do you want to speak on the substantive?
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, look, it's always a substantial challenge to get adaptive reuses of heritage buildings, and we've seen the result of not being able to find something where the building's been boarded up and they just deteriorate, and they have to be. They can't be all museums. They have to come up and function in today's world, and I think this is a fabulous result, and congratulations to the town and everyone involved. And I've got to say, don't get out there very often, and I'm not from that part of the world, but it's just a further addition to one of the best entertainment precincts. And you might argue, elected members, that it's the best entertainment precinct in Perth, but it's certainly right up there, and this will just add to the attraction of the area. In terms of the hours of operation, I think particularly with the childcare centre, the reality is to function these days, 6:30 is much more practical, and look, they're everywhere. These things are a major part of the function of our society now. So yeah, I'm happy to support the motion as amended.
Thank you. If there's no further,
One last thing, just.
okay.
I agree with the presiding member and the deputy presiding member, but I also would like to say that I want to give credit to the authors of this report who did a great job to very clearly outline the issues on this rather complex proposal.
Thank you. If there's no further speakers, we're going back to the mover or the substantive for right or before I close the debate.
Oh, that's not that bad. I think that's Mayor Vernon's favourite is the crown and the jewel in the crown of Victoria Park. So it's going to be very exciting to see all this progress, and can't wait to opening.
Thank you. Right of reply has been had. We have closed debate on the substantive motion. We are going to the motion inclusive of all of the amendments. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously for the minutes taker. We move back to the agenda. There are no Form 2 applications, applications. There are no SAT reconsiderations. We will now move on to other business. There is no general commentary in relation to the SAT applications with Supreme Court appeals. I have no general business. I don't imagine anyone else has any general business. Accordingly, I'll close today's meeting at 12:24 p.m. Thank you, everybody. So it won't be so I have to go.
Yeah, it's been a big morning. I love it though.